Now listen here, y'all. What if I told you the world you're living in right now, your hospitals, your GPS, your coffee, even the numbers you count with, they all got a little bit of Muslim genius in their DNA. See, history books don't always tell the full story. But tonight I'm about to open a treasure chest of secrets, the untold stories of Muslim inventors who changed the world forever. Buckle up, 'cause this ride, oh, it's gonna surprise you. Let me paint a picture for y'all. Europe was in the Dark Ages, struggling with disease, poverty, and superstition. Meanwhile, in the Muslim world, cities like Baghdad, Cordoba, and Cairo were glowing with light, not just from lamps, but from knowledge. There were libraries holding hundreds of thousands of books, universities welcoming scholars of every faith, and hospitals that made people travel across continents. This was the 8th to 14th century, a time historians call the Golden Age of Islam. And baby, it was golden for a reason. Because here's the thing, while others were burning books, Muslims were writing them. They weren't just dreaming big, they were building the foundations for the modern world. Now I know math ain't everybody's favorite topic, but trust me, you're using it every day, thanks to a Muslim mathematician named Al-Khwarizmi. Born in the 9th century, this man didn't just play with numbers, he revolutionized them. He gave us the word algebra, which came from his book Al-Kitab al-Mukhtasar fi Hisab al-Jabr wal-Muqabala. Sounds fancy, right? But here's the bottom line. Without him, we wouldn't have algorithms, and without algorithms, you wouldn't even be watching this video. No Google, no smartphones, no computers. Al-Khwarizmi laid the blueprint for the digital age, and most people don't even know his name. Ever been to a hospital? Of course you have. Well, you can thank a Muslim genius named Ibn Sina, or as the West calls him, Avicenna. Back in the 11th century, this man wrote the Canon of Medicine, a medical encyclopedia that was used for over 600 years in Europe. He talked about quarantine before it was cool, explained how diseases spread, and even figured out how the heart and lungs work together. And get this, he wrote all that when most of Europe still thought sickness came from bad spirits. So next time you take a prescription, remember, the foundation of modern medicine has a Muslim signature on it. All right, now this one is wild. You ever had surgery, maybe your appendix out or a simple stitch? Well, meet al-Zaharwi, a 10th century Muslim surgeon from Spain. This brother wrote a 30-volume medical encyclopedia called Al-Tasrif, and in it, he showed over 200 surgical tools. Some of those tools, still in use today. He invented forceps, scalpels, catgut stitches, even the basics of cosmetic surgery. That's right, folks. Before plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills, there was a Muslim scientist making it happen in Cordoba. He made surgery safer, smarter, and more scientific. Now here's one you probably didn't see coming. Your morning coffee? Yeah, that's Muslim-made. In the 15th century, Sufi monks in Yemen needed something to keep them awake during late-night prayers. So they brewed up this magical bean water, and coffee was born. From Yemen it traveled to Mecca, then Istanbul, and eventually conquered Europe. Now Starbucks is everywhere, but the roots of that energy boost you sip every morning come straight out of the Muslim world. Imagine that, all your big Monday meetings, powered by a Sufi invention. Let me tell you something, folks. Before you had Google Maps telling you to turn left in 300 feet, there was a Muslim astronomer named Al-Sufi. Back in the 10th century, this man mapped the stars like no one else. He updated the Greek star catalog, identified the Andromeda galaxy way before telescopes, and even described the brightness of stars with his naked eye. He called it the Book of Fixed Stars. And here's the kicker. Sailors used his charts to navigate the oceans. So next time you're flying across the world, remember that GPS started with a Muslim stargazer looking up at the night sky. Now I gotta talk about a brother who literally changed the way we see the world. Ibn al-Haytham, also known as al-Hazan. Born in Basra, this man is the reason we understand how light travels. Back in the 11th century, he said, "Hey, light doesn't shoot out of your eyes. It comes into your eyes." That was a game changer. He invented the camera obscura, the ancestor of your smartphone camera. He laid the foundation for lenses, eyeglasses, telescopes, and microscopes. So every selfie, every movie, every pair of glasses, they got a little piece of Ibn al-Haytham in them. This fella didn't just make clocks, he made works of art. Water clocks, elephant clocks, even programmable automata, which are basically the ancestors of robots. His book, The Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, is like a blueprint for modern mechanical engineering. He created the first crankshaft, the same thing your car uses today. So when your car engine starts purring, thank Al-Jazari for that little piece of genius. You like perfume, shampoo, clean water? Thank Jabir ibn Hayyan, the Muslim chemist who turned alchemy into real science. In the 8th century, he discovered acids like sulfuric and nitric acid, designed laboratory equipment like alembics and stills, and taught the world how to distill, crystallize, and filter. This man laid the foundation for modern chemistry, and while Europe was still trying to turn lead into gold, Jabir was busy inventing the science that gave us medicine, fragrance, and even fuel. That's not just history, that's legacy. All right, folks, here's one that'll blow your mind. You ever been admitted to a hospital with wards, nurses, and patient records? Well, that system, that whole concept, came from a Muslim doctor named Al-Razi, or Razes. In the 9th century, he ran the first real hospital in Baghdad with specialized wards, medical records, and even training for students. He wrote over 200 books and discovered alcohol's use in medicine, not the kind you drink, the kind that sterilizes. His hospitals were so advanced that European travelers wrote about them with their jaws on the floor. So next time you get a checkup, you're walking in his footsteps. Now this right here is like something out of a superhero movie. In the 9th century in Cordoba, Spain, there was a man named Abbas ibn Firnas, the first real-life flying man. He built a glider with wings, climbed up a hill, and y'all, he jumped. Now he didn't exactly stick the landing, broke a few bones, but that flight, it was centuries before the Wright brothers even thought about a plane. This man dreamt of touching the sky, and guess what? Today, every airplane you see owes a tiny little nod to that brave Muslim pioneer. Let's talk about a number we all take for granted: 0. Yep, that little circle changed math forever, and Muslim scholars helped bring it to the world. Think about it, without 0, you can't do algebra, you can't do calculus, you can't even balance your checkbook. Al-Kindi and other scholars in the House of Wisdom translated and expanded on Indian mathematics, making 0 a hero in calculations. That's the seed of everything. Your bank account, your phone storage, even NASA's rockets, all counting starts with 0. Ever used a world map? Thank a Muslim geographer named Al-Idrisi. In the 12th century, this man created one of the most detailed maps the world had ever seen, for the King of Sicily. His map wasn't just some scribbles on paper, it was a masterpiece carved on silver. Traders, explorers, and sailors relied on it to navigate the globe. Columbus, Vasco da Gama, they were sailing in a world already mapped by Muslims centuries before. Now, let me tell you something real important. Science ain't about guessing, it's about testing. And that whole idea, Muslims helped pioneer it. Ibn al-Haytham, remember him? The optics guy, he said, don't just believe it, test it. He introduced experimentation, observation, and repeatability long before Europe's scientific revolution. So when you hear folks talk about modern science, just know, a Muslim thinker put the method in the scientific method. And here's one you didn't see coming: music therapy. Yeah, Muslims were out here healing people with melodies. Al-Farabi, a 10th century scholar, wrote about how music affects the soul, how it can ease pain, calm the mind, and even help with mental health. Long before we had playlists to chill out, this man was teaching rulers how music could heal their people. He was a philosopher, a musician, a scientist. Talk about being multi-talented. Listen, y'all, clean water ain't always been a given. Back in the 11th century, a Muslim engineer named Al-Muradi was designing water-raising machines, pumps, and systems that made cities thrive. He helped create fountains, irrigation for farms, and even water clocks that kept time with flowing streams. Think about that. While some parts of the world were still hauling buckets, Muslims were building hydraulic engineering marvels that made entire civilizations flourish. Now this is beautiful. The word Bimaristan means place of healing, and that's exactly what Muslims created. These weren't just buildings, they were institutions of care. Patients got treated for free. Rich or poor didn't matter. There were separate wards for different illnesses. music therapy for recovery, and even mobile hospitals that traveled to villages. Imagine a world where healthcare wasn't just business, it was a duty to serve humanity. This one right here changed the whole game of knowledge. When Muslims learned paper making from the Chinese, they didn't just copy it, they perfected it. Baghdad became the printing powerhouse of the 8th and 9th centuries. Suddenly books were everywhere. Libraries like the House of Wisdom had hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. Knowledge wasn't locked up anymore, it was flowing like the Tigris River. That paper revolution is the reason we got schools, universities, and yeah, even your textbooks. All right now, before satellites were telling you where to go, there was this little device called an astrolabe. Muslim scientists like Mariam al-Astrolabi, yes, a woman inventor, designed them to measure stars, find prayer times, and navigate across deserts and seas. You could find your location without a single battery. Sailors called it a lifesaver. Scholars called it a miracle. Today's GPS is just a high-tech version of what Muslims were already mastering 1,000 years ago. Y'all might laugh at this one, but hygiene was a revolution. While Europe thought bathing once a year was fine, Muslims were making soap with olive oil, using shampoo, and promoting cleanliness as part of their faith. They introduced perfumes, toothpaste, and even hand-washing techniques that stopped diseases from spreading. Cleanliness wasn't just about smell. It was science, it was survival, and it was sunnah. Folks, imagine getting surgery without anesthesia. Hui, that's pain on a whole new level. But in the 10th century, Muslim physicians used herbal sedatives, sponges soaked with opium, and other natural remedies to numb pain during surgery. They didn't just cut, they cared. This was centuries before modern anesthetics came along. They believed healing wasn't just science, it was mercy. Here's one for all my glasses-wearing folks. Muslim craftsmen in places like Syria and Egypt mastered glass-making. They created clear glass for reading, lenses for seeing, and paved the way for microscopes and telescopes. Without that skill, no scientist would have been able to peek into a cell or gaze at a distant planet. They turned sand into clarity, literally. Let me tell you, while kings were fighting over land, Muslim scientists were figuring out how to make that land grow. They introduced crop rotation, irrigation canals, and new seeds to Spain, North Africa, and the Middle East. Olives, oranges, sugarcane, even rice, their farming techniques turned deserts into gardens. That's not just farming, that's feeding civilizations. You know how you swipe a card or write a check? That system started in the Muslim world. Merchants in the 9th century were writing sak, the origin of the word check, so they didn't have to carry gold on dangerous roads. You could deposit money in Baghdad and pick it up in Cairo. That was the first form of secure banking. Today we call it fintech. Back then they called it smart business. And finally, let's talk about schools. Muslims created some of the first universities, Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, Al-Azhar in Egypt. They welcomed men, women, rich, poor, Muslim, non-Muslim. If you wanted to learn, the doors were open. They believed knowledge was a duty, not a luxury. That's why today, when we talk about education changing lives, we're echoing a principle Muslims lived by over 1,000 years ago. So here's the truth, y'all. The world we live in, with its smartphones, its hospitals, its maps, its music, it ain't just built by one civilization, it's a mosaic, and a big shining piece of that mosaic is Muslim brilliance. But here's what blows my mind. How come we don't hear these names? How come kids grow up thinking the world just started inventing in the 1800s? It's time to tell these stories, to honor these minds, and to remind the world, greatness don't belong to one nation or one time, it belongs to those who dare to think, to serve, and to share. And that, my friends, is the real history. Now go ahead, share this video, let somebody else know the truth, 'cause history is powerful, but only if you tell it right.